Hey guys, welcome to Southern Gal True Crime. We feature missing persons, cold cases, and current true crime in the news. It's Sunday. We made it another week. Thank the Lord. It was a long week. So tonight we're just going to have a little chill time with true crime. Take a look at some current true crime in the news. There's been a couple big stories that came out in the last few days. Manson girl, or former Manson girl, Leslie Van Houten, was paroled and released from prison. The big story, they have arrested the suspected Long Island serial killer, and he has been charged so far with 3 counts of murder, and I'm assuming they're going to do all they can do to try to link him to the other killings, because I believe they found 10 bodies in all. So I'll bring you all the latest information on that. And I also have a follow-up story to a video I did a few months ago about a lady from Arkansas who worked at a mortuary who was selling body parts. And I will put a link to the original video in the description box, so I encourage you to take a look at that. Very interesting in a horrifying way. And a shout out to one of the ladies in the Natural State True Crime Discussion Facebook group who put a link to this new story that's connected to the original story. So I'll bring you that. And anything else that happens to come up. But as always, I always start out with a missing person from neverforgottenarkansas.gov, which is the Arkansas Missing Persons Database. And tonight's featured missing is Benson Bogan. He is a 30-year-old black male, 5 foot 6 inches, 160 pounds, with brown eyes and black hair. And he went missing on July 8th, which was a week ago, from Forest City, Arkansas. And here is a picture of Benson. I will give you, if you have any information about Benson or his disappearance, I will give you a phone number you can call. Even if you don't have any information, I encourage you, please like this video, share this video, comment on it. Share his picture, share his information. I will put a link to this in the description box. Please share it. It's a fresh case, so hopefully we can get the information out quickly and bring this gentleman home. And the phone number you can call is the Forest City Police Department at 870-633-3434. Once again, Benson Bogan, missing from Forest City, Arkansas. Alright, with that very important information taken care of, we will get into our news. Let's see what we're going to start out with. We'll start out with, there it is, Miss Leslie Van Houten, former Manson girl who has just been released from prison after, I can't remember how many years. I'm sure it'll tell in the article. So Charles Manson, cult follower, released from prison on parole. And this article is from the 11th of this month. And there is a picture of Leslie Van Houten. And Charles Manson follower Leslie Van Houten walked out of a California prison Tuesday after serving more than 50 years of a life sentence for her participation in 2 infamous murders. And I'm sure if you are watching this, you are into true crime, so you know all about the Manson murders. Alright. Van Houten was released to parole supervision, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation said in a statement. She left the California Institution for Women in Corona, east of Los Angeles, in the early morning hours and was driven to transitional housing, her attorney, Nancy Tetrol, I probably butcher that, said. She's still trying to get used to the idea that this is real, her attorney told the Associated Press. And I can imagine after being in prison for 50 years, a lot of things have changed. There was no, like, internet, cell phones, just technology has come very far in 50 years, obviously. So it's going to take a lot for her to get used to being out in the real world again. Days earlier, Governor Gavin Newsom announced he would not fight a state appeals court ruling that Van Houten be granted parole. He said it was unlikely the state Supreme Court would consider an appeal. Van Houten, now in her 70s, was originally sentenced to death for helping Manson's followers carry out the August 1969 killings of Lino LaBianca, a grocer in Los Angeles, and his wife Rosemary. Her sentence was later commuted to life in prison when the California Supreme Court overturned the state's death penalty law in 1972. Voters and state lawmakers eventually reinstated the death penalty, but it did not apply retroactively. The LaBiancas were killed in their home, and their blood was smeared on the walls afterward. Van Houten later described holding Rosemary down with a pillowcase over her head as others stabbed her. Then, ordered by Manson follower Charles Tex Watson to do something, Van Houten said, she picked up a knife and stabbed the woman more than a dozen times. The slayings happened the day after Manson followers killed actress Sharon Tate and 4 others. Van Houten, who was 19 at the time, did not participate in the Tate killings. And there is a picture of the Manson girls. Or some of the Manson girls. Susan Atkins, Patricia Kremickle, and Leslie Van Houten. Van Houten is expected to spend about a year at a halfway house, adjusting to a world changed immeasurably by technology in the past half-century. She has to learn how to use the internet. She has to learn to buy things without cash. It's a very different world than when she went in. Van Houten, who will likely be on parole for about 3 years, hopes to get a job as soon as possible. She earned a bachelor's and a master's degree in counseling while in prison and worked as a tutor for other incarcerated people. Van Houten was found suitable for parole after a July 2020 hearing, but her release was blocked by Newsom, who maintained she was still a threat to society. Now, she did some very, very awful things, no doubt about it. So I'm not disputing that fact. But at 70 years old, I don't know how much of a threat to society she would still be. I'm not saying it's impossible. We've all seen older people who have done terrible things in their 60s, 70s. But we'll see. Hopefully, she will keep on the straight and narrow and try to lead a normal life as she can. I would imagine that due to the high profile, everybody knows the Manson case, that she'll probably have a problem if she wants to stay out of the spotlight. She'll probably have to go into seclusion. Now, it may be that she wants to be in the spotlight and she'll be doing interviews and writing books and whatnot, but that's just my opinion. I'm not saying one way or the other. We'll just have to wait and see. She filed an appeal with the trial court, which rejected it, and then turned to the appellate courts. The 2nd District Court of Appeal in May reversed Newsom's rejection of her parole in a 2-1 ruling, writing that there was no evidence to support the governor's conclusions about Van Houten's fitness for release. The judges took issue with Newsom's claim that Van Houten did not adequately explain how she fell under Manson's influence. At her parole hearing, she discussed at length how her parents' divorce, her drug and alcohol abuse, and a forced illegal abortion led her down a path that left her vulnerable. Well, that may be the case, but that is still there's absolutely no excuse to take another human being's life, no matter how tough your life is. There are a lot of people who've had very rough lives that don't go out and harm other people. Just my opinion. But, you know. They also disputed Newsom's suggestion that her past violent acts were a cause for future concern were she to be released. Van Houten has shown extraordinary rehabilitative efforts, insight, remorse, realistic parole plans, support from family and friends, favorable institutional reports, and at the time of the governor's decision, had received 4 successive grants of parole, the judges said. They also noted her many years of therapy and substance abuse counseling. Well, I appreciate the fact that she made all these efforts while she was in prison and didn't just, you know, sit there and play, you know, woe is me and things of that nature. And there, of course, is Charles Manson. The dissenting judge who sided with Newsom said there was some evidence Van Houten lacked insight into the heinous killings. Now, I don't know if that means that they think she didn't realize how bad what she did was. I don't know. I mean, it looks like you would have to know how horrible the act of taking another person's life is, but Newsom was disappointed by the appeals court decision, his office said. More than 50 years after the Manson cult committed these brutal killings, the victims' families still feel the impact, the governor's office said in a July 7th statement. And I agree with that. It doesn't matter how many years go by, if you lose a family member, a loved one, it's always going to be with you. In all, Van Houten had been recommended for parole 5 times since 2016. All of these recommendations were denied by either Newsom or former Governor Jerry Brown. Corey LaBianca, Leno LaBianca's daughter, said last week that her family was heartbroken by the possibility that Van Houten could be released. Van Houten, a former high school cheerleader and homecoming princess, saw her life spiral out of control at 14 following her parents' divorce. She turned to drugs and became pregnant, but said her mother forced her to have an abortion and bury it in the family's backyard. Well, I agree that would be very, very traumatic, but still not an excuse to go out and later on take somebody's life. Van Houten met Manson at an old movie ranch, Spawn Ranch, on the outskirts of Los Angeles, where he had established his so-called family of followers. Manson died in prison in 2017 of natural causes at age 83 after nearly half a century behind bars. Alright, so that is the information about the release of Miss Leslie Van Houten. So we will see how she does out in the real world after 50 years of being in prison. Like I said, hopefully she'll do well and keep a low profile if that's what she wants. And we'll see how it goes. Alright, let me get a drink. Alright. Let's see what we're going to take a look at next. What do I got? Okay. All right. Now, as I said in the opening, a few minutes ago, I did a video on a woman. I'll just give you a brief recap. Who was arrested for, she worked in a mortuary in Arkansas, and she was apparently selling body parts. So I'll just read the first of this. Arkansas woman accused of selling human body parts via Facebook Messenger. And this was back in May of this year. So in April of this year, I believe her name was Candace Chapman Scott, was arrested without bond. An Arkansas woman has been indicted on charges relating to allegedly selling body parts over Facebook to a man in Pennsylvania. Now pay attention to these names because they will come up in the new article. The man was identified last year as Jeremy Pauley, 40, who was charged after East Pennsboro Township Police executed a search warrant when a caller reported that Pauley had buckets of human skin and human organs in his basement. Told you. This is bizarre and horrifying. I don't want to say fascinating, but during the course of the investigation, police were able to determine that Pauley allegedly purchased the remains from Candace Scott, a woman in Arkansas, over Facebook Messenger. Those messages showed that Scott had sold Pauley several remains for $4,000. And then it goes on to give what kind of parts she sold to him. And like I said, I'll put a link to the original video in the description. Please watch it. Once again, I don't want to say it's fascinating. It's horrifying, but nonetheless. Alright, so that is the original story. So now, let me find it. There it is. This is the new story that is connected to the original story. And this comes from WSMV, and I believe this is out of Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. Which I very well could be, because I am mistaken a lot of times. But anyway, FBI finds stolen human remains used as decorations inside Mount Washington man's home. So already I'm getting Ed Gein vibes. Alright, and this is the gentleman in question. His alias he used on Messenger was William Burke, and his real name is William something. We'll get to it. Anyway. Alright, and this is from July 12th, so just a couple of days ago. Louisville, Kentucky. When FBI agents served a federal search warrant at an apartment in Mount Washington, they discovered dozens of human bones inside, some of which were being used as furniture. Like I said, Ed Gein vibes. I think Ed Gein had skulls or bone skulls used as ashtrays, lampshades made out of human skin, and so forth and so on. Try not to get too graphic, so hopefully Facebook won't flag the video and pull it. So I'll try to be careful what I say. As many as 40 skulls were found during a raid at James William Knott's home Tuesday morning on Love Avenue. Wave News troubleshooters broke the story about the raid while continuing to confirm details about suspected human remains. That confirmation came Wednesday morning, hours before Knott was to have a detention hearing on his recent arrest. I don't know what the other arrest was, but anyway, probably not as interesting as this one. Alright, according to the criminal complaint, Knott was part of a ring of purchasing and selling stolen human remains. some of which were tied back to the Harvard medical scandal, which the FBI also recently busted. A Harvard medical bag was found in Knott's home. The complaint says the FBI was investigating body parts going missing from a mortuary, the one in Arkansas. The leads gathered during the investigation led agents to several players, including Knott. The grisly discovery included hip bones and spinal cords, which were being used as decorations around furniture. They also described as many as 40 skulls. One of them had a scarf tied around its neck. I don't even want to know. Another was found on the bed where Knott slept, agents said. Once again, don't want to know. The complaint goes on to say that when an FBI agent asked Knott if anyone else was inside the apartment, Knott replied, "Only my dead friends." Once again, only my dead friends. You can't make this stuff up. Alright. Knott used the name William Burke on Facebook to sell the items. Some posts were as recent as June 2023, the document states. Now, in one transaction with a person named Jeremy Pauley, remember that was one of the names from the original story, out of Pennsylvania, Knott sent videos and pictures of the remains. "How much total for the couple and the last video you sent, plus the spines?" Pauley asked Knott. He tells Knott he will make sure he gets paid. The investigation began after the Pennsboro Township Police Department received a tip about possible human remains inside of Pauley's Pennsylvania home. When agents searched his home, they found remains including organs and skin, the documents state. Pauley was in communication with an employee at a mortuary in Little Rock, Arkansas, and that is Candace Chapman Scott. That employee, Candace Scott, was stealing remains that were going to be cremated and selling them to Pauley, detectives determined. Those remains also included hearts, brains, lungs, and 2 specimens. It was Pauley who told agents, the complaint states, about a network of stolen remains. Another individual suspected to be in the network was a man named Cedric Lodge, who is the manager at the morgue for the Harvard Medical School Anatomical Gift Program. Well, I guess they took the gift part of the gift program literally. Although I guess they weren't gifts if they were having to pay for them. At any rate. Through the course of the investigation, agents discovered transactions not conducted. Knott was arrested immediately after the raid Tuesday and was initially charged with having a firearm as a prohibited person. Agents found multiple loaded firearms in the home, including at least one AK-47. They also found inert grenades and 2 plates for body armor. I don't know what he was preparing for, but apparently he needed some human bones to whatever was going on in that little crazy head of his. Just my opinion. Alright, after the raid, Wave News troubleshooters uncovered Knott had served about 3 years in prison in 2011 for having a mass collection of destructive device parts, including those for grenades and propellants. The ATF investigated that case. Those documents revealed Knott admitted to construction destructive devices, say that 3 times fast, in the past. This story will be updated. So it sounds like this guy, never mind all the human remains he has some major just what they call destructive devices. So it is a very good thing that this guy, sorry, my lighting's going cuckoo on me, as usual. Anyway, it sounds like this guy most definitely, my light's driving me nuts, definitely needs to be off the streets. Sorry, still messing with my light. Alright, so that is our bizarre, apparently I can't use my words tonight either. That is our bizarre story of the night. Can't get much more, well, I know, I was going to say you can't get much more bizarre than that, but unfortunately we know that you can. Alright, so now we will go to our Long Island serial killer, suspected Long Island serial killer arrest. Now this happened 10 years ago. 10 bodies were found on Gilgo Beach on Long Island, in fairly, close together. I'm trying to remember my details. It's been a while since I took a look at this story. They found the bodies because they were looking for, they got a 911 call from a lady, and I can't remember her name right now. I'm sure it'll give it in the story. They traced the call, or however they did it. Anyway, they ended up finding her body out there. It was determined her death was accidental, but in going out to that particular area where she was found, and they searching around, they started finding all these other bodies, and so that's how all this got started. I know that's a very bad explanation. Anyway, so we will look at who they have arrested as the suspected Long Island serial killer, or the Gilgo Beach murders. Gilgo Beach murders. Let me get this name right. Rex Heuermann, charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. The suspect has been identified as Rex Heuermann, 59, and he is the owner and founder of a Manhattan architecture firm. Alright, a man was charged Friday in the Gilgo Beach. I'm going to have to be careful how I say Gilgo, or it's going to come out as a really bad word that will definitely get me banned from YouTube. So, anyway, start over. A man was charged Friday in the Gilgo Beach murders on Long Island in New York, a case that baffled investigators and captured the country's attention for more than a decade. Rex Heuermann, 59, of Massapequa Park, a village in Nassau County on Long Island, pleaded not guilty, of course, to 3 counts of first-degree murder. And like I said, I'm sure they're going to do everything they can to try to link him to the other bodies that they found. Rex Heuermann is a demon that walks amongst us, a predator that ruined families, Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison said. It says, we knew suspect was watching, Suffolk County DA says. Prosecutors and investigators worked to keep details secret because they knew Heuermann was watching, the district attorney said. That's very interesting. We knew we were playing for an audience of one person, Suffolk County District Attorney Raymond A. Tierney said at a news conference today. Prosecutors said in court documents that Heuermann searched the internet for details about the cases, about the task force formed to investigate the Gilgo Beach killings, and also about the Long Island serial killer and the victims, which it's not unusual for offenders and serial offenders to keep up with the news about their crimes. Tierney said the searches about how the task force could or was trying to use cell phone information supported their focus on keeping developments secret. We knew that this person would be watching, and we did not want to give him any insight into what we were doing, Tierney said, and we also didn't want him to know just how close we were getting. Discarded pizza box also played a role in the case. One key to the arrest of the suspect in the Gilgo Beach murders, a top prosecutor said, was the discarded pizza crust, a food that led authorities to identify a California serial offender more than a decade ago. In January, after officials started focusing on Houten, detectives saw him throw a pizza box into a trash can on Fifth Avenue in Midtown Manhattan, according to a bail application filed in the case. The crust inside was analyzed by 2 forensic crime laboratories. The second lab determined that DNA on a swab of crust matched the mitochondrial DNA profile of male hair found on burlap used to restrain and transport victim Megan Waterman. And if I'm correct, I think the mitochondrial DNA has something to do with the mother's DNA. Could be wrong. I'm not an expert. I just watch YouTube videos and try to learn what I can. Suffolk County District Attorney Raymond A. Tierney said today that familial DNA was used to connect Houten to the other DNA evidence. Now, this is becoming more common. I believe that's how one of the ways they were got onto Brian Kohberger's trail. I'm trying to think. The Golden State Killer, they use the genetic genealogy. So it's becoming more common and still controversial. But hey, if it helps get these serial offenders captured and put away, more power to them, in my opinion. Pizza was connected to a high-profile serial offender prosecution in 2010 when Los Angeles authorities revealed a discarded crust was used to extract DNA. The crust was matched to the son of Lonnie Franklin Jr. through a state offender database, and it helped lead to his father's conviction. Franklin was convicted of 10 killings as the Grim Sleeper because of a 14-year gap in his attacks, and I believe that is the Golden State Killer. Could be wrong, but I'm thinking it is. Franklin died on death row in 2020 amid a moratorium on capital punishment in California. Sorry, I'm messing with my light again. Oh, God. All right. Okay. Suspect has permits for 92 guns. Houten has permits for 92 firearms, Suffolk County District Attorney Raymond A. Tierney said. The weapons were yet to be accounted for, but they might be found under a number of search warrants to be filed or executed in the case. Tierney suggested at Friday's news conference that the guns are in a safe at Heuten's Long Island home. He has a very large safe in which guns are kept, he said. We're continuing to execute search warrants, so I'm sure we'll have that answer shortly. I'm fixing to throw this light across the room. Okay. It wasn't clear if he believes any of the firearms may have been involved in the attacks. Tierney said the victims' remains were in poor enough condition that they may not provide detailed evidence of the victim's last moments. Forensically, there was not a lot that could be done with the remains. Suspect was patronizing prostitutes. An arrest had to be made for fear he'd kill again. So apparently he was or the authorities suspected he was still operating as a serial offender. So, in the course of their investigations, it might be possible they might find more recent victims. Let's hope not, but there's always that possibility. Houten was continuing to seek out prostitutes, raising fears from police and prosecutors that he could kill again, officials said. This individual was a person that continued to patronize prostitutes at all hours of the night, Suffolk County DA Raymond Tierney told reporters. He continued to use fictitious email addresses, fictitious identities, and burner phones. So yeah, it sounds like he was still active. Very scary. The moment of pulling the trigger on an arrest was a consensus decision, according to the prosecutor. So as we worked through the case and we got closer and closer and we built the evidence, suddenly the balance tips in favor of public safety, as it should, Tierney said. So I think we all wanted, as the task force, to continue it. But I think we collectively thought it was time to strike that balance and take him off the streets. Most definitely. The sooner they got him off the streets, the better. Police call serial offender suspect a demon that walks amongst us. Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison labeled accused serial offender Rex Heuermann a demon and thanked investigators for their work that ended in the suspect's arrest. Ladies and gentlemen, Rex Heuermann is a demon that walks amongst us, a predator that ruined families, Harrison told reporters. If not for the members of this task force, he would still be on the streets today. And thank God he is not. A mother of Gilgo Beach victims says suspected serial offender should suffer at the hands of other inmates. The mother of one of the Gilgo Beach victims says she hopes the suspected serial offender will suffer in prison. I'd like him to suffer at the hands of other inmates, Lynn Barthélemy said Friday in an interview with NBC News. Let him receive what the girls received. Death is too good for him. It's too easy. I tend to agree with that. Well, I was going to say that, if they're alive, they have to live with that on their conscience, but we all know that all serial offenders are, this is my opinion, psychopaths who have no empathy, no conscience. They don't give a you-know-what about their victims. If they do anything, they usually fantasize and relive their offenses. So, Among the breaks in the case were calls made on Melissa Barthelomy's burner phone to her family members in the days after her 2009 disappearance, according to a bail application made public Friday. And this is just awful. The taunting phone calls in which the male caller admitted to killing and S.A.ing Barthélemy were traced to a location in Midtown Manhattan near Heuermann's then office, the bail application says. NBC News previously reported that officials believed the alleged killer used Melissa Barthelomy's cell phone to repeatedly call her teen sister after the killing. That is just absolutely horrifying. Can you imagine what her sister was going through with this monster, this demon as they call him, calling her from her deceased sister's phone? We knew all along that the phone calls were going to be key, Lynn Barthélemy said. And neighbors say suspects seem like everyday businessman. Postal worker says his house was creepy. To some neighbors, Rex Heuermann seemed like an everyday businessman. Neighbor Barry Oslander, 72, said he'd seen Heuermann taking the Long Island Railroad into work in the early mornings, always in a suit and with a briefcase. And apparently, from other articles I've read, he was some kind of architect or something to do with architecture. He didn't look like he was looking for any kind of trouble, Oslander said. However, it was perplexing to Oslander that Heuermann, who owns a Manhattan architecture firm, would live in a run-down red house some called creepy. How does a man who owns an architect firm live in a ramshackle house with his family, he said. After so many years without answers, Oslander said many believed the Gilgo Beach murders would become a cold case. Then, all of a sudden, technology catches up to you, he said. And that is the great thing about technology is, with cold cases, the better the years go by, the better the technology gets, the better analyzing DNA gets, and a lot of these cold cases are getting solved, which is always a wonderful thing. Crystal Booker, 30, has regularly been delivering mail to Heuermann's home for the last several months, but said there were times she didn't want to deliver there because it looked creepy. She described the suspect's surrounding neighborhood as quiet with friendly people, but said she never interacted with Heuermann personally. I probably saw him once or twice, but I never actually handed him the mail, thank God, Booker said. I'm a little shaken up because I've done this route a few times, and to hear it is kind of like, wow, she added. I'm just blessed to be here, and I'm happy I'm not one of the victims. Tearful suspect appears in court, tells lawyer, I didn't do this. Well, of course you didn't. Because everybody, I was going to say everybody in prison is innocent. I'm sure that's a whole other debate we won't get into. Heuermann broke down in tears in front of his lawyers and insisted on his innocence, the defense team said. He appeared in a Long Island courtroom dressed in casual business attire and was formally told of the multiple murder charges filed against him. Before he was ordered held without bail, Heuermann pleaded not guilty to 3 counts of murder in the first degree and 3 counts of murder in the second degree. 3 counts? Okay, 3 counts first degree and 3 counts second degree. I wonder if that means he's charged with 6. But the story said 3. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. Anyway, all right. Defense lawyer Michael Brown said he just met his client who was in tears. We just got appointed on this case. There's not much I can tell you at this point in time, Brown told reporters outside the court. I will say to you folks that it's extremely circumstantial in nature. In terms of speaking to my client, the only thing I can tell you that he did say as he was in tears was, I didn't do this. But and I think it's in this article, they have DNA, his DNA, or familial DNA. Alright, Shannon Gilbert. That is the woman who made the 911 call that led to all the bodies being found. Shannon Gilbert's client, who saw her the day she vanished, praises suspect's arrest. Joseph Brewer, one of the last people to see Shannon Gilbert, whose disappearance led to the discovery of the Gilgo Beach murder victims, praised the arrest of Heuermann. Gilbert, who worked as an escort and had visited Brewer, a client, at his Oak Beach home the day she disappeared in May 2010, police said. Calls to 911 reveals she left in a panic and knocked on neighbors' doors before vanishing. Her remains were ultimately found in December 2011 in the Oak Beach marshland. The search for her remains led to the discovery of the Gilgo 4. Houten has been charged in connection with 3 of those slayings, but not in Gilbert's disappearance. Mr. Brewer and his family want to convey their deepest sympathies for not only the family of Miss Shannon Gilbert, but to anyone that has been affected by these mass tragedies. With the suspect now in custody, it is their hope that some justice will be served to the families of those who were so tragically lost. A statement by Brewer and his family shared by his attorneys at Charitar law firm. The statement said Brewer has been cooperating with law enforcement since the beginning of the search for Gilbert. The onset of the immediate adjudication of Mr. Brewer being involved in these atrocious acts has not only placed an immovable blemish on the good man's life, but placed him and his family in a position of stereotypical treatment as one can imagine. We are fully behind any and all efforts to bring justice to these families and will continue to cooperate with law enforcement to any extent possible during these hard times. Well, is that the end of it? Oh, come on. I thought there was more. They told about some of the evidence. Let's see. Oh, here we go. All right. Hair of suspect's wife also found on 3 Gilgo Beach victims. The hair of Heuermann's wife was found on or near 3 of the victims, prosecutors said in a bail application. A hair was recovered from the buckle of one of the belts found binding the body of Maureen Brainerd Barnes. So that is some good evidence, in my opinion. Now, I'm not an expert on evidence, but if his wife's hair was recovered from the buckle of a belt that was found binding the body of one of the victims, I would say that's pretty good. 2 female hairs were recovered on the body of Megan Waterman, who was found bound by tape. One hair was found from outside the head area and another from the tape of the head area. Another female hair was found on a piece of tape inside burlap wrapping found on the body of Amber Costello. So that's 3. That must be the 3 that maybe they're charging him for, because his wife's hair was found on their bodies. All those female hairs were sent to an outside forensic laboratory, which in July 22 determined they belonged to a woman who was not any of the victims. On July 21st, 22, an undercover Suffolk County Police Department detective recovered 11 bottles from a trash receptacle in front of Heuermann's home. The bottles were swabbed and samples sent for testing. In February, the lab concluded that one of the DNA profiles generated from the bottles matched the same mitochondrial haplogroup as the female hairs recovered from the 3 victims. Based on the investigation and evidence, it was determined the hair belonged to Heuermann's wife. As the investigation found that Heuermann's wife was out of state at the time of the 3 women's disappearance and killings, it is likely that the burlap, tape, vehicles, or other instrumentalities utilized in the furtherance of these murders, came from defendant Heuermann's residence, where his wife also resides, or was transferred from his clothing. Alright, suspect used burners' phones for sadistic, torture-related searchers, prosecutors say. Heuermann used burner phones and multiple email accounts to search for sites depicting violence to keep up with the ongoing investigation and to reach prostitutes, prosecutors said. He used fictitious names, 4 email accounts, and phones to conduct thousands of searches related to prostitute, sadistic, torture-related CSAM, according to a criminal complaint filed against him. Such terms often focused on violent acts involving underage minors. His online search records also showed an interest in the case itself, with queries such as, why hasn't the Long Island serial killer been caught, and why could law enforcement not trace the calls made by the Long Island serial killer? Alright, we already went over the pizza crust, and apparently there's a picture of the pizza box and the pizza crust in question. Alright, let's see. I've already covered that. I'm just trying to... Okay. Suspect Chevy Avalanche linked him to the slangs. Huerman's Chevrolet Avalanche was a key part of what led investigators to hone in on him in connection with the Gilgo Beach murders. Sorry. Oh, this reading's drying my throat out. A witness in the disappearance of 27-year-old Amber Lynn Costello identified a first-generation Chevy Avalanche as the vehicle believed to have been driven by her killer, a bail application filed today in Suffolk County Court said. A renewed joint investigation into the decades-old case led to the discovery of a first-generation Chevy Avalanche registered to Huerman in March 2022. Subpoenas and search warrants on Huerman followed, leading to the discovery of cell phone bill records. The records allegedly corresponded with cell site locations for burner phones used to arrange meetings with 3 of the Gilgo Beach victims. They were also allegedly linked to taunting calls made to a relative of slain victim Melissa Bartholomew and voicemails to victim Maureen Brainerd Barnes's phone. So this guy was just using burner phone. I mean, not only bad enough that he killed these victims, but he's taunting their family members. This guy there's, in my opinion, I'm just going to lay it out there, there is a special place in hell for people like this man. Huerman to be charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. Huerman will be charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of second-degree murder in the deaths of Melissa Bartholomew, 24, Megan Waterman, 22, and Amber Costello, 28, according to his bail application. They are 3 of the Gilgo 4 whose remains were found in December 2010 along Ocean Parkway in Gilgo Beach, Suffolk County. The document said that though Huerman was not charged with crimes in connection with the disappearance and killing of 25-year-old Maureen Brainerd Barnes, the 4th member of the Gilgo 4, he is the prime suspect in her death, and the investigation is ongoing. So hopefully, yes, they will find some evidence that will link him to her death and any of the other ones that he might have most likely, in my opinion, been involved in. The application shares graphic details of the killings and alleges the suspect searched for sadistic material online. He also allegedly used fictitious names and burner email and cell phone accounts. It asks that Huerman be remanded without bail. Yes, do not let this don't even want to call him a man, let this thing out on the streets again. Cell tower clue led authorities to focus on Long Island. Law enforcement felt strongly that the Gilgo Beach serial offender was from Long Island because of a cell tower ping clue, two senior law enforcement officials briefed on the case said. The ping came from the Massapequa area from a phone belonging to one of the victims after her death, sources said. Officials believe the alleged killer used Melissa Barthelomew's cell phone to call her teen sister repeatedly soon after Melissa disappeared in 2009. The alleged killer made explicit comments, claimed to have killed Melissa, and related details of her killing that only the killer would know. Police believe the caller was a white male and the calls came from Midtown Manhattan. That is just so... my brain is about to explode. He's calling, once again, this victim's sister and giving all these sadistic details of what he did, and oh God, my brain hurts. My brain hurts so bad, and my heart hurts so bad. Okay. It was previously unreported that the same victim's cell phone previously pinged off a tower in the Massapequa area around the same time. It was that potential clue that led officials to believe the suspect could one day be found in that area. The suspect's house is a little more than a 15-mile car ride from Gilgo Beach. Alright, now we got neighbors' comments. Neighbor says suspect's family members were loners. A next-door neighbor of Houten says these suspects' family members kept to themselves and were like loners. Patricia Marissa, 64, has lived in the neighborhood for more than 20 years and was stunned by the news that the man who lives next door to her was arrested in connection with the Gilgo Beach murder investigation. And that's always what you hear, the neighbors and people who knew them, they're stunned. They were nice people, and that just shows you how these psychopaths and serial offenders can lead two separate lives, and family members, their own family members don't know, neighbors don't know, they have no clue. It's just terrifying how they can lead have these two lives, and nobody knows. Nobody knows. I can't believe what's going on, she said today. It is very sad. She added that she felt bad for both the families of the victims and the family of the suspect. And that's one thing that, in my opinion, gets overlooked too. When these serial offenders have families who have no clue, truly have no clue what's going on, you can just imagine their shock and their surprise and their heartbreak to find out that their dad, their husband, their whatever is a monster. I just couldn't imagine. She said that she had minimal conversation with the neighbors in the now infamous one-story red house, which stood out from the neighborhood of well-kept white and beige two-story homes. Some people in the area were creeped out by the home, she said. If they're outside, we say, "Hi, how you doing?" and that's about it, Marissa said. She said Huerman lived in the home with his wife, a son, and a daughter. He's a tall, big guy, always dressed well, she said, but noted he wasn't overly friendly. She said the last time she saw him was about a week ago when he was working in his yard. It seems like they were starting to redo the front of the house because they put in a new door and new windows, Marissa said. She noted they live in a quiet area where at night you could hear a pin drop. And it said they, I might try to play a little of this video. They truck towed from suspect's home.
I'll have to ask my mom about that because she is. We'll stop there.
And I don't know if this truck has anything to do with if he even had this truck 10 years ago. Looks like a newer model truck. But of course they're going to take everything as evidence and search it and do DNA testing as they should. Let's see. I think this is just a repeat of when they arrested him. The day has finally come. New York Governor Kathy Hochul said today in response to news that a suspect was arrested in connection with the Gilgo Beach killings. Hopefully, after further news is unveiled today, the answer will be yes. The day has finally come when someone so depraved of heart, would kill innocent individuals in the prime of their young lives is finally brought to justice. Absolutely. Hochul said she hopes the news will bring justice and peace to the families. And the governor also took a moment of silence for the victims in the slayings. Alright, let's see if there's any other information. More neighbors commenting. Oh, I thought this was interesting. Actor Billy Baldwin said he knew the suspect taken into custody in the Gilgo Beach investigation. He tweeted, "Woke up this morning to learn that the Gilgo Beach serial offender suspect was my high school classmate, Rex Heuermann. The two attended Berner High School in Massapequa, New York, and graduated in the class of 1981, he said. Mind-boggling. Massapequa is in shock," he wrote. Alright. Okay. Lawyer for victims' families feel there is still another suspect. John Ray, an attorney who represents the families of Shannon Gilbert and Jessica Taylor, said he is delighted that there has been an arrest in the Gilgo Beach murders. But he added that he feels very strongly that Heuermann is not responsible for all 11 murders, including the killings of Gilbert and Taylor. Which could be true. It would not be unusual for more than one serial offender to be working in the same area at the same time. It's happened before. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but not uncommon. It gives us something of a sigh of relief, but it's partial, Ray said in an interview this morning. There's still much to be done on this. Ray said he is certain that today's arrest is connected only to the so-called Gilgo 4 victims whose bodies were discovered wrapped in burlap within days of each other in late 2010. Gilbert and Taylor were not among those 4, and their families are still holding out hope for another arrest, he said. There undoubtedly is another suspect, Ray said. Like I said, I would not be surprised. Oh, another about his arrest. Another friends talking. And I'll put a link to this in the description box if you want to read the whole thing. A lot of it's just starting to repeat itself. And I've been talking for I don't know how long now. I've lost track. Anyway, so I need to be wrapping it up. And just here's a map of where the bodies are found, fairly close together. 8 of them. So you can take a look. It gives the number and where the name that each number, victim's name of that each number corresponds to. Another with Shannon Gilbert's sister. Okay, suspect has a Manhattan architecture firm. Heuermann, identified as the suspect taken into custody in connection with the Gilgo Beach serial killings, is the owner and founder of a Manhattan architecture firm, RH Consultants and Associates, according to the company website and his LinkedIn profile. RH Consultants and Associates was incorporated in 1994 and has clients including Catholic Charities, the New York City Department of Environmental Protection's sewage treatment, and American Airlines, according to the company website. Okay, suspect identified. Let's see, one more page is probably just more repeats. Alright, I think we come to the end. Okay, I know that was very long, a lot of information, but I just thought it was important information and interesting information. Hopefully, like I said, so far he's been charged with 3 counts of murder. Could be charged with the 4th in the Gilgo 4. Possibly connected to the other bodies, maybe not. Officials seem to think there may be another serial offender at work at the same time. Entirely possible. Alright, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, found this information interesting. I know it was probably kind of long. Like I said, I have no idea how long I've been babbling on here. Probably too long. But anyway, please do like and share this video. I'd love to hear your comments about any of the stories that we went over, talked about here tonight. Before you leave, please do hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell so you get notifications of when I upload new videos, which is usually 2 to 3 times a week, depending on my work schedule, which is hectic, and I don't have a set work schedule. I try to do at least a missing person a missing person feature, a cold case feature. Sundays usually we have we lighten it up a little bit with take a look at some dumb crimes and some dumb criminals. Y'all seem to like that, so I'm gonna try to do more of those. But tonight I wanted to just give you updates on all this stuff that's popped up in the news the last couple of days. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. It is truly, truly appreciated. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Be careful out there.